I looked at my teammates and I said, "Are you strong?" They said, "I'm strong if you're strong." And I said, "We're strong then." We quote Jameis, we talk about sports. Water cooler's next. "2:30 on a Friday. No place we'd rather be. Josh Cohen, Grace Marlowe, Chris Lopez. We're talking sports. We have so much good stuff to talk about, but we're going to start on a somber note. This past Sunday, we all learned of the passing of Jose Fernandez, the Marlins ace, dying in a boat accident. A daughter on the way and a whole ton of promise for this youngster. Life tragically ended. It's hard starting the show on this note.
It is tough starting this.
Yeah.
But I
starting the
must
show on this
ask.
note, man.
What kind of legacy did he leave on the game of baseball?
Well, even though he was only 24 years old, Jose Fernandez leaves an undoubtable large legacy on the sport of baseball, and especially to the community of Miami. I mean, you're talking about a Cuban-American player who went through the experience of traveling here on a boat the way that so many people currently living in Miami do and Cubans around the world can identify with. And he not only represented that struggle, but there's a story of him diving in to save a woman who turned out to be his mom. I mean, this guy was a good person. More than just being a good player. He also was a Rookie of the Year, a two-time All-Star, and on his way to possibly, a perennial All-Star, maybe Hall of Fame career that's tragically cut short. But his effect, nonetheless, is huge, especially on the community of Miami.
Absolutely, and it was almost a symbolic, homecoming for Miami to have that game. D. Gordon hitting that home run. Yeah. Truly special. It reminded me a lot of Jordan winning his 4th championship after his father's passing and dedicating it to him on Father's Day. Yeah. Really symbolic. I think it does raise the question, though, of we forget a lot of the time that athletes are also people who do things outside of sports, and it raises this question where it was brought up, should he have been out boating if he's in season?
Should he have been out doing anything like that at all? I mean, that's a fair question.
Absolutely.
I mean,
these guys are being
paid
like a lot, and obviously it's a horrible tragedy. Not to even take away from that, but it was raised, should people be doing things like recreational sports that put them in danger?
And it should be noted that he was scratched from the game Sunday, so that's why he was out on the boat to begin with.
He was scratched to set up to start against Noel Syndergaard, which makes sense.
Yeah.
And the only problem with a line of thinking like that is how far does it go?
Absolutely.
We saw Mariano Rivera lose one of the last seasons of his career to a torn ACL, shagging flies in the outfield. And everyone asked at that point, should he even have been shagging fly balls? But that's kind of his athletic routine, and that's something that he's used to. And so much of how much control can you actually have over athletes who are also human beings?
Right.
And so I don't think anyone should be restricted by anything, but
Yeah, I believe there was an incident where Joe Sakic broke a finger in season snowblowing. And as someone from Colorado, you got to snowblow the lawn, man. You got to get those sidewalks clear. Kids are going to walk down those. Yeah. I don't think anyone has any grounds to say that these people aren't people before they're athletes.
Yeah. We now move on to a bit of a brighter note, because we love talking about Vin Scully. We love talking about the great announcers in all of sport. And we now ask, what is his legacy as one of the greatest announcers to ever do it?
Vin Scully is legendary. I mean, having done anything since 1950, first of all, think about where we were in 1950. Our country's come extremely far. I think Vin Scully has been an irreplaceable part of baseball. Talking about announcers, they almost shape the sport, I think, as much as the sport shapes them. And so for Vin Scully, looking at his contribution to baseball, to the city of Los Angeles especially, I mean, I don't know, besides Chick Hearn, I don't know if you can say that anyone was truly as integral to that team in that place as Vin Scully was to the Dodgers.
A voice for multiple generations, undoubtedly. Though I think some of this farewell stuff might be getting a little too much.
Oh, come on.
Congress just officially recognized the career of Vin Scully.
California's Congress.
No.
California's Congress.
Was it in or it wasn't in the National Congress then? All right, I guess that's fine.
It was Dianne Feinstein.
Right. Oh well, it was 3 senators. I thought in the House. Whatever.
U.S. Congress.
Sorry, I totally lost it. I guess so.
Am I wrong? Is it U.S. Congress?
These farewell tours are getting ridiculous, but let's move on.
We move on. Vin Scully loves baseball. And while we may not love baseball quite as much as Vin Scully, we still want to talk about it. 2:35 p.m. on a Friday. The wild card races heating up. We've got the Orioles, the Blue Jays, the Tigers, and the Mariners. Just 2 games back in the AL, and then in the NL, the Mets, the Giants, and the Cardinals.
Yeah,
How do you see this shaking out?
Only a couple games left, though. I mean, we will only have, 1 weekend to go now? So 3 games left. The Mariners at 2 games out are pretty much out of it.
Yeah.
The Tigers at a game and a half. I have a little bit of hope for as a Detroiter, but I'm mostly excited for the Blue Jays-Orioles game. I mean, these are AL East rivals, and the Blue Jays, I think, are the most exciting team in the playoffs, so I just can't wait to see that game be played.
I'm very intrigued by the Giants because they will be playing the Dodgers. And
I'm
Dodgers
scared.
have win for Vin, and I think there's a lot more pressure on the Giants as a team.
I'm horrified that this is the perfect situation for them.
Exactly.
The second team to make it into the wild card, only with Madison Bumgarner to. I mean, they've been terrible. They've been the worst second half team in all of baseball. This is the perfect setup for another Giants championship.
Yep.
This is the perfect time for them to just catch fire and win it all. And it's
Absolutely, and they have a great opportunity too. With the Cubs, I think that it's more pressure than momentum for them, looking at the drought of championships.
Absolutely.
It took so long for the Red Sox to break out of their funk. I don't think
Well, won't it be
Chicago
awful when the
has
Giants
momentum.
inevitably beat them in a 7th game, like a 2-1 ugly game, where some position player we've never heard of hits a walk-off home run? That's what I'm waiting for. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Grace just said drought of championships. What a segue. USC football, 1-3 to start the season.
Oh God!
Massive game against Arizona State tomorrow night at the Coliseum. But we kind of again pan out on the whole situation and look at Clay Helton and say, how long does this thing last?
Well, it should at least last through the next 365 days, which, if you'll notice, is longer than the end of the season. And we have already heard rumors about Clay Helton's job status being up in the air, which I think is ludicrous that you would even talk about firing a first-year head coach after he's played 3 ranked opponents in his first 4 games with a team that no one was really sure about who they would be coming into the year. And it took us 3 games to find our quarterback. And frankly, with Darnold being a freshman, Darnold a freshman and Brown a redshirt senior, you would think that he would be the first person to get the reps. So I don't disagree with a lot of his decisions specifically. I think that we've had a really tough go so far, but there's the rest of the season left to play.
I think Clay Helton has done everything right, and I think the reason he's going to get fired before the end of the season is because we have a fan base that expects greatness.
Yeah, we're rabid.
I think that, exactly.
But
and
unjustifiably
our fans,
so. It's crazy.
It's easy to be a bad team and to be bad.
But we need to recognize we have to be bad for a little bit.
Our school is built on a legacy. Our program's built on a legacy, and Lynn Swan's a first-year athletic director who's going to start freaking out pretty bad when people start coming for him if he won't fire Clay Helton. I think that Clay Helton has to be Lynn Swan's.
And we know that we
Are
shouldn't.
we, though?
But we know that we
Are
shouldn't
football
freak
fans
out.
full-grown adults at all times?
Lynn Swan, as an athletic director, is, and he should know that he shouldn't freak out. He should stay composed and make the right decision, which is what, looking back, he'll want to say that he did.
Ideally, they should
and
let him
Pete
settle
Carroll's
in.
first season was 6-6.
Right.
I think that even if the rest of the season doesn't go great, we'll be 6-6.
But as Pete
Bill
Carroll left us
Belichick's
in a
first
spot
season
where
at New
we
England
won't
was
accept
5-11.
6-6.
Well, that's our fault, though. And if we fire Clay Helton for a 6-6 season, then we deserve being worse for more years. We
Clay
can't,
Helton is
we
the
can't
coach
be rabid like this.
we need, not the coach we deserve.
Well, so that's pretty much what it is.
It's going there. Grace, I'll start with you.
Yeah.
Does USC win tomorrow night against the Sun Devils?
Unpopular opinion, I'm calling a close loss to the Sun Devils. I know people think their schedule is easy. Ours has been really rough. I think that our momentum is completely stalled. Absolutely completely stalled. I think Clay Helton's going to be very nervous. I think he already pulled every trick out of his bag. I think Darnold was the last resort, and he played extremely well.
He wasn't a last resort. He was a close loser in a QB battle all summer. He's got lots of things to look back.
When
We
you
haven't even put a Dory on
freshman-
offense. We still have a lot of options.
Didn't a little part of you get just so excited when you found out we were switching quarterbacks and trying that?
Yes.
That's a huge switch
Well, yes,
for a
but
team. That's the biggest switch you can make.
There's a lot of players on this team and a lot of switches to still be made. I mean, Juju
Not
Smith
wrong.
still hasn't hit his stride.
But in
We
terms
really
of
haven't started to
morale,
spread
I
out.
don't think he has as big of a game changer. And
You got to move on to the next game, and the best teams always have short memories. I mean, trust me, losing 1 week, the hangover is really that bad. I mean, it wasn't like Utah was a heartbreaking. We lost a close game, but these kids have lost close games before. Not all of these kids are perennial winners. I mean, it's not like they have an entire football life outside of their experience at USC, and they've handled losing plenty. So it's a young team, yes, but Arizona State is a much worse team than almost all the teams we played except for Utah State. They really only operate their offense through one player, which is Kalen Ballage, who's a tank and has scored 9 touchdowns. But if the defense can focus on him, especially Cameron Smith has played well this year, and I think that we can match up well against they primarily use their running backs. So it's a good matchup for us on defense, and our offense looked good with Darnold last week.
How big of a difference do you think being at the Coliseum makes?
Oh, a huge difference. And especially you talk about the morale and the momentum, it'll be great to be back in front of those home fans. I mean, that's what this team needs.
The big question mark, whether or not they can contain Kalen Ballage, the Arizona State running back, had 8 touchdowns in one game this year, breaking an NCAA record. That came against Texas Tech. We all know Red Raider games are always like 100 to 99, so maybe we'll put a little asterisk next to that record.
I think so. We can physically handle them.
No doubt. Impressive nonetheless. The thing with Ballage...
Will we?
Oh, see, that's the thing, because he lines up in the Wildcat, so a lot of direct snaps to him. Does that pose an issue for this USC defense going up against that kind of threat?
Well, the different look poses a little bit of an issue, but I think we have the athletes to handle it, which is really what they take advantage of, is when other schools they play don't necessarily have the athletes, especially in the secondary, to make those tackles. But our athletes in the secondary are Amon Marshall, who's a physical beast. We have Adoree Jackson back there. I mean, I think that their strengths, especially on defense, line up very well with ours. So I like our matchup against them, whereas the Arizona State defense, even though they're 4-0, they're giving up, 45 or 34 points a game.
Yeah.
So if you're a 4-0 team giving up 34 points, I think that we can run every single play, go down the field with Justin Davis and Rojo just back-to-back and really wear their defense out.
I think that the Wildcat might actually be a great opportunity for USC, like you were talking about that young talent. This is a great opportunity for them to be able to focus in on something and go after it. I think sometimes changing the game, having the game changed on you, being able to scout it, being able to look at it, and having that one point of focus helps a lot of people to just focus on the task ahead rather than to focus on all the outside elements of maybe a more traditional game.
Arizona State isn't that complicated. We've figured them out before.
And a very young secondary that Sam Darnold's going to be throwing against in his second career
and
start.
he could take advantage of that, but more importantly, Darius Rogers and Juju Smith. I'll take them in every jump ball tomorrow.
I'm excited to see what Darnold does. This is a great opportunity for him.
You almost sound optimistic.
Dare I say it? Hopeful. I don't want him to lose. I just don't.
Yeah.
We're all very excited to see Sam Darnold. Once again, he was 18 of 26 in that first game in brutal conditions at Utah. Also added a rushing touchdown. So very exciting to see what number 14 does behind center after replacing Max Brown. But Grace Marlowe is on the panel. So we are talking about basketball now. Yes, the NBA season hasn't started, but we are ready to go. We're in mid-season form, and we're talking youngsters. Kobe retired. Tim Duncan retired. KG retired. Guys, I ask you, who is the next big thing in this sport?
Right. So we're talking non-obvious new greats.
We must clarify.
We are not talking Steph Curry. We're not talking LeBron. Get over it. We know they're great. We're talking about who's under the age of 26, 27, who's going to come up and be a household name 30 years from now.
And a lot of great young players out there.
Yeah, and the first person who comes to mind for me is Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
I think that he plays fantastically. He plays, I think, a thing that's very underrated about a player like Tim Duncan, who I'm so sad is no longer in the National Basketball Association, is that he plays very well with people of different basketball generations. We saw Kyrie Irving come into this Cavs team, which was having a lot of trouble gelling and really pushing them to that championship.
He was really the mainstay on that team.
Absolutely.
I mean, he was there with LeBron, then LeBron left, and Kyrie Irving maintained that franchise and I don't think gets enough credit for sinking that shot in the playoffs and really winning the series for the Cavaliers.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, LeBron will get a lot of credit for getting them there, but Kyrie Irving's the one who won that championship. His shot was physically the game winner and an amazing shot over Steph Curry from the elbow. So, I mean, he's already proven he can perform in the clutch and he can carry an entire franchise, and with stars can win a championship.
And then another young player on the Spurs who will definitely fill a lot of the holes that are going to be left, especially when Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker retire, is Kawhi Leonard out of SDSU.
I mean, it's already his
the
team.
guy still drives his car from 2002?
Which is just the kind of guy he is. But one of the best two-way players in the NBA.
Unbelievably good. Hustles up and down. I believe he came into the NBA with a bad free throw shot and worked on it like 60 hours a week.
He came into the NBA with just a bad shot. I mean, at San Diego State, he was not a great scorer. Great defender, yes, but he could not really put the ball in the bucket, and that was why he slipped down to San Antonio's draft position. But the coaching of Greg Popovich, putting him in the right situations, you see what happens.
Absolutely, and the shooting coaching of Chip England, who formerly was with the Denver Nuggets.
Both of those guys are guys who have rings.
Right.
Anthony Davis of the Pelicans, who everyone talks about his athleticism. They talk about how he's growing his perimeter game. They talk about possibly the best defender, a block machine at 7'1", and yet can run with wings. But he gets almost no hype. He's in terrible commercials, which awful commercials. And, no one really seems to talk about him when they think about, the premier players in the NBA. Should he be in that group?
I don't believe he should yet.
Well,
I have yet to see him do something that makes me think Anthony Davis is set apart from the rest of the NBA.
Well, you just look at him and you think that.
Well, what, because he has one eyebrow?
Because he's the best athlete in the NBA not named LeBron James. And shows it. He just hasn't played for anything significant. He's never been relevant.
True, but Kyrie Irving not being the best athlete but being one of the most skilled players, I think is much more memorable than an athlete. I look at Anthony Davis, had injury issues, has been a little bit spotty, has done great things for New Orleans, but I haven't looked at New Orleans and thought, wow, they're changed because of Anthony Davis yet. Obviously, they win more games. He scores a lot of points. I haven't seen him do something that makes me think this is a guy who I would pick over other people.
The antithesis of that then would be the Minnesota Timberwolves, who with Towns and Wiggins, everyone's talking about them like, oh, they're going to sneak in the playoffs and really blow up this year.
Yeah.
So are you looking at them, maybe Karl Anthony Towns? I mean, who's the lead?
I think Karl Anthony Towns has great potential.
Yeah, I mean, he could be the center that everyone thinks Anthony Davis should be because he also has the range.
Yes, he does have the range. With those two, I feel like it's hard to have, and I felt this way with the Cavaliers when they started stacking their teams, was that you can't have too much similarly talented talent on a team.
Yeah.
And with that, we send you guys to Studio C. Hope you enjoyed the NBA talk. Now, Connor and Alex are talking some NFL.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, just like you guys are saying, the NBA needs some new greats. NFL is going to need some new greats as well. Now we're going into week 4. Connor McGlynn, Alex Duplessis here with me. We're going to be talking a little bit of this hype that's surrounding some of these teams, Alex. One of the big NFL greats that went down, J.J. Watt. The Texans, I don't think they're legit anymore. Their defense needs J.J. Watt.
Relax. If you're a Houston fan, even without J.J. Watt, I think you're going to have a pretty good defense. You're going to have to see guys like Clowney, Whitney Merciless, and big old Vince Wilfork step up to make up for that lost production, but I still think they'll be like a top 15 unit. Where people should be worrying in Houston is with that offense. Where is it? You brought in guys like Lamar Miller, Will Fuller, Brock Osweiler, but still through the first 3 weeks of the season, Osweiler's got more interceptions than the Texans have touchdown drives. So it's something that they're definitely going to have to figure out and address if they want to make the playoffs. Another team with offensive question marks, though, the Minnesota Vikings.
Oh.
They have no offense. Matt Khalil gone, AP, no Teddy B.
No, like you said, no offense, a lot of question marks all over the place. But I don't think it's that bad. I think they're still in good contention, not only for playoffs. We're looking Super Bowl, baby. Bring it to Minnesota. Forget about Teddy Bridgewater. Sam Bradford, I'm not his biggest fan, but he opens up the offense in different ways that Bradford can't do it, or that Bridgewater can't do it. Sorry about that. He's got that strong arm. But then on the defensive side of the ball, that defense is stellar. 13.3 points per game. They have a league-leading 4.4 yards per play. That's pretty incredible. Harrison Smith back there in safety, Everson Griffin. They made the reigning NFL MVP, Cam Newton, look like he was playing JV football out there last.
In that game.
Yeah, so just incredible. But while the Vikings don't necessarily have a quarterback, one team that does, the Philadelphia Eagles, Carson Wentz, he's the real deal.
All aboard the Wentz wagon. Man, that kid is playing incredible. He's got over 750 yards, completing a high percentage of his throws, 5 touchdowns, no turnovers. But while he's been playing great, something that should be getting more attention is how well their defense has been playing, setting up Carson for success. I mean, through 3 games, they've only allowed 27 points, and that's including a game against what many believe is the top offense in the NFL in Pittsburgh.
So when you're rivalry.
Yeah, when you're playing that good a defense, you're setting yourself up for success on offense, and I think that's what you're seeing with Carson Wentz and his production so far. But also, you're talking number 2 pick in the draft, Carson Wentz, number 1 pick with the Rams. Rams, are they playoff contenders even without him?
No, they're not playoff contenders. Not only are they a Jeff Fisher team who's proven time and again that he's not a contender. You said offensive production, the Rams just don't have it. But you know what? We'll have to see. We're going to go to break right now, come back. Guys over in Studio A are going to have office pool for you. Stay tuned.
And welcome back into the water cooler, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed that Studio C segment courtesy of Connor and Alex.
I know.
We now have Office Pool, and we have an unreal week in college football that we're going to break down now, make some picks. 3 top 10 matchups. Are you kidding me? It's
None of
so
them
we're
involving,
salivating over
none of
here.
them
It's-
involving USC.
Anyways, mouth-watering action nonetheless. And we are going to start out with a Pac-12 game, not involving USC. Stanford, number 7 in the country, is taking on Washington, number 10, in Seattle. Who you guys got?
First of all, I'd like to compliment our EP John Marcus on that wonderful tree
Oh, it's
graphic.
amazing.
It's excellent.
That's one of the best graphics I've ever seen.
Fight the farm. I have picked Stanford because I have personal experience with Christian McCaffrey ruining
Yeah.
my teams. I went to high school at a rival high school of his, and he decimated our entire team.
Sounds like this pain
And
is
now
really deep
I go
down
to
there, huh?
USC, and I get to watch him continue to decimate my entire team. I think that Christian McCaffrey has momentum. He's just like very dynamic. You don't
but
really
the
see
issue-
players like him who are working not only with strength but with a lot of speed and skill.
The issue with that, though, is he's essentially a one-man team. We're not even really talking about Sam. We're talking about Christian McCaffrey versus Washington. The problem is Stanford still has to field 21 other players. And McCaffrey leads them in rushing and receiving. And I think now playing a high-caliber team like Washington, who a top 10 team who really has something to play for, they'll be keying in on him and at least have a chance to somewhat slow him down. Whereas Washington is also putting up 45 points a game, but it's coming
True.
from everywhere.
But-
And it's coming from Browning at quarterback, who's already played amazing. Gaskin and Coleman are both great running backs, and then they still have weapons on the outside.
True, but have you seen Christian McCaffrey not step up to a challenge before?
That's a very fair point, but he didn't win the Heisman, so yes.
That's not his
I mean,
fault.
but yeah, no,
That's
of
Mo's.
course, most challenges that he runs up to, he conquers, but against UCLA last week, he didn't look very good. In fact, he looked very not in sync with his teammates then. I mean, he wasn't able to dominate the game like he normally does. And I think it's about being physical with him, punishing him. I mean, he reminds me actually a lot of like Steph Curry when he's playing. Feels like he
Yeah.
can do anything, get anything
Yeah.
done. The only way to really get him down is to physically beat him down, is to
Yeah.
just wear him out through an
'Cause he's
entire
not-
game.
he's not
and
huge.
We've seen with running backs, especially year to year. I mean, he led the entire country in touches last year.
Right.
Eventually, this has to catch up with him. Eventually, I get that he's
You're
a
talking
Greek.
about a
I get that he's a Greek
21-year-old
god.
dude.
No, but who's getting his body beat down week after week after week
You get to at
for
least
years.
24 before your joints start to
Oh
fail.
no! I mean, come on. People already have had career-ending injuries that young. I mean,
true.
he's facing a massive amount of punishment like no running back we've seen actually take, and especially now in the second year, it's going to really hurt him.
We now move on. More battles of undefeated teams and Heisman hopefuls and all that good stuff. We are looking at Wisconsin at Michigan. It's number 8 at number 4 from the Big House. Grace, I will start with you.
Well, we have all picked Michigan.
We have.
Yeah.
I like to think that it's because we looked at this match, which I believe is a strength-on-strength match. This is not going to be like one team relenting. I think it's going to be a knockdown, drag-out. I think that Michigan's running back De'Veon Smith, 259 rush yards, 6.6 yards per carry. I think he can go against, even
De'Veon's a
though,
tank.
yeah, and
He's a
even
tank.
Wisconsin has a very strong defense. They're very confident in themselves.
Yeah.
But with a player like that pushing through, I think it's going to be very hard for them.
So, pretty much on paper, Michigan's going to dominate this game,
Yes.
which is cool. And we all picked Michigan for that exact reason.
Mm-hmm.
But what scares me about this is we're jinxing this too hard. Remember last week when we all picked Michigan State? All 3 of us picked Michigan State against Wisconsin, and Michigan State got beat down. Even
Lopez,
Fuzzy picked Michigan State.
Fuzzy did. Fuzzy's
So,
going to have to move on.
Right now, not only did we all pick them, on ESPN right now, they have Michigan an 85% chance to win. Does this not seem eerie to anybody right now? Michigan has all the hype. Everyone's ignoring Wisconsin, even though both of their defenses allowing less than 13 points a game. I mean, I think Wisconsin might pull it out.
The big one.
I'm worried about it.
College game day, all that good stuff. Louisville and Clemson, it's number 3 at number 5. The Cards tearing it up this year with Lamar Jackson behind center. Does Louisville do enough in Death Valley, Clemson, South Carolina, to take down Deshaun Watson and the Tigers?
I think this one's all about home field advantage. I mean, of course we saw Louisville destroy Florida State earlier this year. Now that was a college game day at Louisville that they hadn't had in years, and that was really the game of their century. So I'm not surprised they got up for it and dominated, but I think that this is exactly that game for Clemson. I mean, they've struggled a little bit early in the year, but they still were in the championship game last year, still have Deshaun Watson, and especially that defense.
Yeah.
I mean, Louisville, the defense isn't as strong. Clemson's defense is very strong. Under
Right.
15 points a game this year. They have future NFL players on that roster, and that's really what Dabo Swinney does well, I think that Clemson's got a good chance.
I mean, I can't add much more. That defense, number 3 in the country, that's going to be almost impossible. And Louisville's offense is excellent. But number 3 defense in the country.
Yeah.
And then
And the defensive
Deshaun
line
Watson
controlling
coming
will be
back.
important.
They have the comfort that USC does not have, which is a returning quarterback who's very comfortable in his position, Heisman contender. I think Clemson's going to pull it out.
They're just built for the moment.
They're going to really upset them.
They are, but if they let number 8 outside the pocket, it's game over.
Well, of course, but Clemson, as we've already seen, send defensive linemen to the NFL. That is a very athletic defensive front and one that controls teams routinely and controls athletic quarterbacks routinely. So if anyone could do it, it's Lamar Jackson, but this Clemson has the best chance of maybe anyone in the country of controlling him. And then offense, they still look great. Gallman, also the running back, has had a good year so far. So I think they just have more to work with.
Lamar Jackson taking college football by storm this year in his sophomore season, much like Deshaun Watson did last year for Clemson in his sophomore season. Battle of top 5 teams. That's tomorrow. Prime time. We also have UNC FSU this weekend and Georgia Tennessee. A lot of big games to watch out for. So we have some final memos here. And once again, Grace's fantasy team is infiltrating this wonderful student television show. She is 3-0 and continues to win. There you see the scoreline.
Love it.
Beating
Wow.
Party like a
63
Gronk
points.
star.
Oh my
Shouts out
gosh.
to our EP
Was
on
that
that
it?
one.
Man, my bench scored more than John Marcus' starters did this week.
Only
Ooh,
63?
jeez.
John?
Jeez, John.
Grace, it's becoming a problem.
I mean, the Broncos put the team on their back. I had 40 points off of my wide receivers, and so I'm
geez.
looking at another great matchup for them, and I'm really looking forward to wiping the floor with Brett so that we can continue to have a final memo
See,
topic.
I scored 200 points and I couldn't get a graphic. Man, that's rough. That's rough.
We're going to have, she's undefeated.
That's fair.
We're going to have
And you beat me.
a whole lot of more final memos just at the ready, as long as Tim Tebow keeps cranking homers.
Oh,
First
yes.
at bat, minor
Love it.
league Mets, yard.
I
Tim
always
Tebow.
believed. Always
My
believed.
goodness, what do we make of him?
I witnessed his magic as a young fledgling Broncos fan in Denver in a Mexican restaurant watching the Hail Mary against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I witnessed it again with the Mets.
I wouldn't say it was necessarily that dramatic, but to see him homer on the first pitch is just a very Tebow moment.
That's a comeback. That's a big comeback after you bounce around that many sports.
That's fair. And he's just the consummate athlete. I mean, this is just another example of him just being able to go anywhere and do anything. Remember when they were trying him out for punt teams in the NFL? Like, Tim Tebow was just like, oh, let's just throw him into any athletic situation, see if he can get it done. And honestly, not shocked.
You
Some
know,
people
God
think Tim
grabbed that
Tebow-
baseball out of the air and threw it.
Well, and
Some people think it's comical that Tim Tebow's trying to make a run at the MLB.
it really
but the
depends on
guy
what your
who-
expectations are. Because when you talk about him being a major league player, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But this is like AA independent team, which is what he's perfect for.
So some people think it's comical. A guy that no one is going to ever debate is comical is Daniel Tosh. He's at it again. The Lane Kiffin
Sure, no one's gonna
impersonations,
debate
it
that.
is getting out of hand.
Oh man, it's so good. He looks like Lane Kiffin.
He does.
It's
Which is what makes
really,
it.
I mean, it's the Tina Fey, Sarah Palin all over again. It's too close. I don't know who's who at this point.
It's
All
very
we can do is
convoluted.
hope for another one and another drunk Sark phone call.
We know we're going to get that video. Daniel's probably making it right now. With that, we thank you guys. We started the show talking about Vin Scully.
Should have been
We're also
angry
going to
dad
end the
at
show
7.
talking about Vin Scully. Vin Scully, once again, to lead you guys on your way out. Thank you so much for tuning in. Enjoy all of the games, starting tonight with Stanford, Washington. Amazing stuff. All right, thank you guys, and have a good one. Vin Scully, once again, to lead you out.
Fight on.
You're watching Trojan Vision. For more of your favorite shows, check us out at